do I want to continue? Yes.
I know, right? I think it's obviously the whole privacy stuff, right? It has to be announced. You have to acknowledge and be okay with
Of
it,
course, of course.
right? Yeah, I get that. Well, I think we'll just wait for Amanda to get back, and then we'll
I'm here. I'm here. I'm just
Okay.
organizing the light, and we've just had a really big storm here, so it's confusing what the light is going to look like because it's dark and then it's light. And
Well, if
I'm
you have any
envious.
extra rain, you're welcome to send it out here.
Me too.
Yeah.
It's so horrible. So dry. We're not Minnesota, the land of what, 11,000 plus lakes. We're so used to having water, and it's just really kind of scary how dry it is.
I'm assuming it hasn't left the planet. It's just gone someplace else.
On to Amanda.
That's right. We've been having unusually stormy weather recently. Just the past couple of weeks, it's been randomly. So usually it's like the hot and dry and beaten down on you sun right now, but we're doing good.
Well, let's start talking wine, guys. We could talk weather all day, probably. So just curious, like those of you here, like, do you guys drink Spanish wine? Is that a typical wine that you go purchase?
I
Yes.
usually stick with local stuff. Sorry.
Ernie, you like it?
We don't go purchase, but we get
No.
it from Chris.
I've tried just about everything, but on a general day-to-day basis, I usually stick with some local stuff. Like this is Rogue River, Oregon rosé.
Nice. What about you, Craig? Do you search for Spanish wine commonly? Or no?
I'm not that much of an enophile, but I'm not very knowledgeable about Spanish wines.
And
It's
Susan, what about
interesting.
you? Do you drink Spanish wine on occasion, or?
Oh, we are, whatever Kristen brings us.
Kristen lives in Alcala, and she's a friend of mine from, I don't even know what year, like 1999 or 2000.
I don't know.
We did this English teaching course together, and she actually said to me, she goes, I'm not really good about keeping in touch, kind of things move on. And then we've kept in touch this whole time.
So
Like it was
great.
like a goodbye, have a nice life. And now but interesting you talk about Spanish wines in the US because their Spanish marketing of wines has not been the strong point of Spanish wines. Like Spanish winemakers have not traditionally been good at marketing outside in such a way that it could be sold and known across America. Although recently, maybe in the past 5 or 10 years, you can really start to see things coming out in, a regular supermarket. You might have to go to like a specialty shop before, and now you can see it in supermarkets or wherever your liquor store, whatever state you're in.
I'm just curious, Amanda. I know in France, like it's really hard to find wines from elsewhere unless you go to a real special store. In France, it's almost all French wine. You know what I mean? In Spain, is it like that too? Is it almost all Spain wine?
Pretty much. I mean, you have to go to like our where people normally go to buy wine. It's going to be harder to find an outside of the region wine, just because there's so many. There's so many here. And you might have to go to like a gourmet shop to find French wines, or a wine shop to find French wines. I mean, Spanish wines, or French or Italian or other countries outside of Spain. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, I don't know, honestly, and it's not like I go searching for it when I'm in France working, but I've never seen California wine in France. You know what I mean? It's just.
Oh, forget about yeah. I mean, I'm talking like other European country wine. I mean, you'd have to go to definitely a wine specialized shop to get California. Right. You see some Australian wines, but not a lot.
Yeah, it would be a big effort to find wine from elsewhere.
Just because you have so much.
Yeah.
So much to choose from.
Well, so, I just learned this about Spain, that Spain has the largest vineyard acreage in the world.
It does. It has more than any other. but it is a high producer, but not as, it's not as productive as other regions.
Exactly, because
Ah.
they space the vines wider than in other areas in the world, basically because of fear of drought and just, you know, making sure the vines aren't competing for resources. So even though you'd think, oh, then they must produce the most wine too, that's not the case. I don't know who produces the most wine.
I think it's Italy and France too. I
Okay.
don't remember which order,
I
but
could see that.
Spain
could
is
see that.
3. But the, you know, the dry climate and the type of soil, like chalky soil, just not real productive soil.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also older vines. There are a lot of older vines here.
Right.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, you know, when we talk about old world, new world,
yeah.
the lines are getting blurred now. You know, not in a huge way, but, you know, generally when people talk about new world wines, they're talking about United States, Chile, you know, maybe even New Zealand, for example. I was just at in Australia and South Africa, though, they consider themselves old world because they've been making wine in
Oh,
South Africa. Yeah, I was just at a tasting last night and they have been making wine in South Africa since the 1600s, which I had
oh my God.
no idea. But when we talk about old world, new world, if we say new world wines, the flavor profile, if you want to say, tends to be very fruit forward, bold, big, and a lot of that came out of Robert Parker, you know, who started being, you know, rating wines, and a lot of people started to follow his rating system and maybe, you know, even subscribing to his the way his taste was. And so that's now changing now quite a bit. But the old world, when you talk about old world wines, you're talking a little bit more about wines that taste like the place, the terroir, the place it's from, a little bit more, maybe even mineral, you know, elements that come from that place.
The earth,
Wines
you
are
know.
produced to actually be recognizable of its place of origin. That's a big deal in France anyway, and I would say in the old world in Europe. And something that is interesting too, when you know what kinds of wines you like when you're looking for trying different wines, it's good to know if you like more what in the wine world they say fruit forward wines, which means more fruity, right? Just the fruit is in the front of the flavor profile when you taste it. And that tends to be wines that come from warm climates like Spain. And then herbaceous or herb-like wines, you know, the fruit isn't the first flavor you taste. It might be more mineral, savory, maybe herbal kind of flavors. And those tend to be wines that are produced in more cooler climates. So if you already know, like, hey, I really like very, you know, more fruity, you know, I like to taste the fruit in my wine, then you would know, okay, I should maybe try more wines from warmer climates like Spain, for example. But Spain actually is considered a bit of a gateway to the world because you find wines that have both elements to them, both the fruity, fruit forward, as we say, and herbaceous qualities to them. So it's kind of a, you know, a happy marriage of all those flavors. And with regard to history in Spain, there's a man, he's got a huge long name, which Amanda's not surprised. Carlos Falco Fernandez de Cordova. He studied at UC Davis in 1964, and he brought in French grapes and modern drip irrigation, especially to the Castilla de la Mancha, the area around Madrid, that wine region. Before he brought that slow drip irrigation system in, it was illegal to water the vineyards.
Yeah.
But since he brought it in, introduced it especially into the Castilla area, the Mancha wine region around Madrid, then it was accepted in this. It's called the do we say Meseta Central? How do you say that?
Meseta Central, like a
So the
plateau.
Central
Yeah.
Plateau. And that area around Madrid actually produces nearly half of the wine in Spain. And in the past, that area around Madrid is just been known for having more of the kind of the basic table wines like vino tinto and vino blanco, white wine and red wine that you find in the supermarket in big plastic jugs. You find that in France too at like cooperatives. You could go, people will show up with their big, in French they call them bidons, the plastic jugs, and they just, there's a little spigot and they just fill up their wine. And is that the same in Spain?
Yeah, yeah. Table wine is definitely like and they'll even like when you go for the midday meal, it's amazing. They'll have like the cheap table wine and they'll just put it like either a pitcher, they'll pour it in there and put a pitcher on your table, or give you an entire bottle for like your midday meal on a Tuesday. So it's like you get this whole bottle of wine or this whole pitcher of wine for your, oh, now I'm going to go back to work.
But on the bottle though, like I've been to places where they just kind of gauge how much you drank of it, like out of the bottle, and then they'll make you pay for whatever amount.
Yeah,
Is that how they
in
do
this
it?
case, when they do the midday meals and they put the bottle on your table, you can drink the whole thing. And there's no like thing. Those places are getting to be fewer and fewer as time goes on. But there are the typical classic, joints where you go in and you get your midday meal with the different courses, and you get your
Okay.
cheap bottle of wine, just vino de mesa, the table wine on the table, and you can drink the whole thing if you want.
Good luck.
But so, and so
It's a little bit of a challenge.
I couldn't do it. But so those basic wines, of course, still exist, but the region that we're talking, I just mentioned the Castilla-La Mancha around Madrid, started to really improve in the 1990s and the early 2000s. Part of it was thanks to the European Union. There was an influx of money to help improve viticulture.
Yeah.
And so winemakers started to bring in vines from elsewhere, like from France, for example, or California, and also winemaking techniques from both California and Bordeaux in particular, because it's so close, right? And so there was a big modernization of the wine industry, and again, it just a big shift, so that the Spaniards were really smart to take that money and not squander it, right? And just really take time to improve their wine quality and production, and to their economic benefit, obviously. So so I thought we'd start. Okay, I've got a map, and I put it on Facebook, and I was going to email it to you guys, but the picture quality of what I took, and it's a bit of a plagiarism, so please don't tell the Wine Folly people share
Not a
this map
problem.
with you. I
Your
don't want to get in
secret is
trouble.
safe with me.
Oh, good. But if you're curious, and I'll email the website out to people if they're curious. It's a great website. It's this woman, Madeline Puckett, and I love her. She just really is talks in layman's terms about wine, and is great about instructing about wine regions, wine, different wines. Anyway, and she makes these really lovely maps. So I think what I'll do, I was going to move my camera to show you, but I think I'll just take the
Yeah.
wow, that might be easier. So obviously there's Spain, and Madrid is right here. And you can see that right around here, a little bit south of Madrid. Actually, sorry, it's not where the word Madrid is. It's the second Madrid word. That's the city. La Mancha, right? Like Man of La Mancha, that's one of the wine regions. And I suggested for the white today that if you could find this Verdejo white from this area, or from up, I think it was from, Rueda. And Rueda is over here, right there, over towards Portugal, kind of northwest of Madrid. Okay, so that's a region where the white that I suggested is predominant. It's like the prominent white wine, but the one I got actually was from La Mancha. Okay, and then the other wine regions that we're gonna touch on would be for the Cava. The Cava is actually the furthest away from Madrid. I don't know if you can see this, but it's over by Barcelona, and it's a really small words, but it says Penedès. And it's just down the coast from Barcelona. I don't know, maybe a half-hour drive or something, but it's really close to Barcelona. And so that's where most of the cava, or the sparkling wine, comes from in Spain. Okay. And then the other two regions would be The Rioja, which is up here, just north of Madrid. Can you guys see this okay? Am I doing okay with?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
So this Rioja, it's basically straight north, and there's different elements in the earth, of course, in Rioja, and they break it up into it's different valleys. There's this main river. How do you say the river, Amanda? Is it Ebro?
Ebro.
Ebro. And then there's a few other little tributaries that kind of ray off of this river, which divided a bit into different valleys. But that is a prominent area where you find the Tempranillo, the red grape. And then the other wine region that we're going to touch on is the, do you say Humilia? Humilla?
Humilla, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's closer to Valencia, and that is where the Monastrell that I suggested you might want to try down here, and it's the dark purple. Okay, so anyway, Wine Folly again is the name, and she has put together with her team these really great wine maps. If you like wine, you want to kind of understand, location of where things are. My map might fall. The tape's not very good. Anyway, but the maps are excellent, really excellent, and her classes online are too. Okay, so let's start drinking.
Sorry, I already drank because I was starting to eat my cheese and I was like, I just need a little.
Oh, I cheated. I had a little bit too.
I saw
Well,
you earlier and I saw
Yeah.
Ernie with the glass. So I was like, okay, someone's drinking something.
Wine Folly is great. Brian said that. And one other resource that I've been really digging into too is another woman. Her name is Elizabeth Schneider, Wine for Normal People. She has a podcast, and I just
Oh.
bought her book. It didn't, I guess it was a used book, so I didn't make all the rips in the thing, but she's a big wine dork, and her stuff is so cool. Like if you are interested in wine and want to learn more, that's another good resource. Okay. I should get paid for that, right? Plugging these people.
Plug, yeah, exactly.
Okay. So cava. Does anyone have any cava today?
I got a little one.
Got a little one.
Yeah.
I actually have a rosé.
I'm going to tell you a funny story. I got
Yeah.
these little packs, and while we do have cava sometimes for like a dinner or something like that, it's usually, and Spanish people drink it as like a regular wine, not as always a celebratory wine. But I got these and I put them in the fridge a couple of days ago. And Chris goes, I spent about a day trying to figure out what I missed. He was like, what celebration have I forgot?
Oh, poor guy.
He was like, that's for your wine tasting. I'm going to stop sweating now.
He's like, what birthday, what anniversary did I?
Exactly.
Oh, sweet. That is so sweet. So cava is made in the same way that the French champagne is, but they can't use any association with that word champagne, because that's a big no in wine world, right? But the French call it the méthode champenoise, the champagne method of producing this sparkling wine. And in Spain they call it cava. And there's other wines, of course, and I've seen even bottles from California that say method champenoise, which is, I mean, they probably are getting sued for that. I mean, that's a big trademark no that you, in the wine world, you're not supposed to use that word at all unless it's from Champagne region in France. But there's plenty of other sparkling wines around the world. In France, other regions outside of Champagne, they tend to call it crémant. It looks like the word crémant, C-R-E-M-A-N-T, crémant. You find it in Burgundy. You find crémant from the Loire. You find it in the south of France. Anyway, and sect, S-E-K-T, that's from Germany and Austria. And then South Africa, they call it Cap Classique. So it's sparkling wine, but they have to use different terms for it. Okay. But, and Prosecco, of course, you're familiar with Prosecco. However, Prosecco compared to Cava and Champagne is made in a different way. Prosecco is made in huge vats, which is cost effective. But it also produces a little bit more lively, fruity, light tasting sparkling wine compared to Champagne or Cava, even, because the whole process in making Champagne or Cava is all done in the bottle. Okay, so there's two fermentations, and I'll just run through this quickly. Some of you probably know this by heart, but you know, basically you make your wine. If it's a blend or what have you, you have your juice, and you've fermented it, you put it into the bottles. And then there's a second fermentation. And so this is called in French, liqueur de tirage. But basically it's a mix of sugar, grape juice or must, they use the word must, and yeast. And this produces another fermentation inside the bottle. And if you've ever fermented anything like maybe or made your own beer or wine, you know that CO2 is the natural, you know, thing that is given off in the whole process of fermentation. Well, in this second fermentation, they cap the bottle, they keep it sealed so that all that fermentation happens in a closed container, and that's where the bubbles happen. In that process, though, the yeast dies off. The yeast kind of eats itself up and as part of the fermentation process. And so there's a layer of what they call lees, L-E-E-S, or yeast, dead yeast particles, basically, that's in the bottle that has to get extracted unless you want it to stay in there. I've actually had a Prosecco before that they kept the yeast in there and it was all cloudy. And it was very bready tasting, you know, like you're eating brioche or bread of some sort. So just a different style. But typically, most winemakers want to extract that yeast from the dead yeast from their bottle. And so they often will, you know, have the bottles over time turn upside down so that all the sediment is in the neck of the bottle. And then when they want to extract that, they freeze, they sink the head of the bottle in like an, is it, what's really cold? Is it like nitrogen or something?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that it
probably.
freezes it. It like freezes all that sediment in an ice cube. And then they take off the cap. They're like, you know, like a pop bottle cap. And then the ice gets ejected with all the sediment in it. And then that's when they have one more chance to doctor up the wine however they wish. And that last topping off of the wine is called dosage. And so that they could put in some more sugar if they wish to, depending on the sweetness level that they want of the sparkling wine or the champagne. Sugar, maybe some grape, other wine, for example, maybe they want to change the flavor of it. And that's their last opportunity to really affect the flavor of the sparkling wine. And then of course they cork it and put the cage on and all that. And so that word lees is a funny one, L-E-E-S, that yeast, right? Because if you ever hear people talk about in the wine world, oh, surly, da da da. I always think they're saying like someone is surly and angry, you know, S-U-R-L-Y. So whenever I hear that, I'm like, what? Surly wine? But they're talking about the sur
Grumpy
means on in French. S-U-R is on. Lee, L-E-S, sorry. So on the yeast is what that is referring to. So not angry, but yeasty is what we're talking. And so with the Cava grapes, very typical grapes that you'll find, and Amanda, you're gonna have to help me with pronunciation. Macabeo?
Perfect.
Oof. Wow. I'm
You
totally
got it.
I'm just winging it here on the Spanish.
I'm loving it.
Okay. And then Parelleda.
Uh-huh.
You familiar with that one? And then there's one that starts with an X, X-A-R-E-L-L-O.
Charelo?
Say it.
Charelo? I think
Okay.
you say Charelo. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. And
Okay.
then of course, Chardonnay. Chardonnay is another one that is made. And mine is a rosé, and mine is made with a very rare grape, red grape. It's called T-R-E-P-A-T, Trepat. How would you say that?
Mhm.
Okay.
T-R-P-A-E-D, Trepid. Yeah.
Oh, this is T-R-E.
Now think about you also want to think about the region is Catalunya. So this is a region that has its own language.
Okay.
So they've got Catalan, and it's a Romance language. So when you think about, you know, the different trees of languages, the Romance language tree is including French, Spanish, Italian, and then there's Catalan. It's its own language altogether. It's not a dialect. It's its own thing. So a lot of these things words that you find on a cava bottle will be in Catalan.
Okay, that's good to know. But so mine, like I said, mine's rosé, and so if it's rosé, they're probably putting in Garancha, which the rest of the world calls Grenache, but it's actually a grape that originates in Spain, Garancha. Pinot Noir, Monastrell, or this Trepat like I have.
Mhm.
And so it can be a really, really lovely wine, of course, for celebration, for eating, for meals, like something that you might eat along with your cava, might be some of your Spanish tapas or paella, or even Mexican food, or even chili, it would go well with. Amanda, when like you guys tend to have it more with celebrations, like
We do in our house where, just because, but we've discovered over time that what we really like is the Nature Brut. So
Mm.
there's Brut, Extra Brut. I don't know if you're going to talk about that.
No, go
But
ahead.
the Nature Brut has the least amount of sugar in it. So it
Yeah.
tastes more like, for us to drink a sugary sweet wine with our meal isn't really what we like to do. We'd like to have that might maybe be for the celebration where you toast and you have what would it be? The Brut would be having the most sugar. So that would be the sweetest. So that we might have as a celebratory dessert wine, but the Nature Brut that has the least amount of sugar could be more of your meal wine.
Yeah.
If you don't like sweet wines. Some people really like sweet wines.
Well, and I know in the champagne world, that the French tend to really like the very, very dry, and more of the sweeter wines tend to go to the States.
Yeah.
Our palate is a little bit more sugary than the French, for example. Would you say that's the same?
I think so. I think so. Like, you will find sweet wines, but it's more common to go with the drier wines.
Yeah. And mine, I'm trying to think if it says anything.
I mean, I'm 47 million people. I don't really know all of their tastes, but that's our taste here in this house.
No, of course.
Or when you go out and you see people ordering wine.
Right. But yeah, the the levels, or the different distinctions of the amount of sugar basically is a bit confusing, because they use the word dry is actually sweeter than brut.
The sec, which is a Catalan word, it's confusing because it
is very confusing. Yeah. So there's the brut nature, which means like natural, and that is the least amount of sugar, like you said. And then there's extra brut, which has a little bit more sugar. And I won't go into the details of all the grams. You could look it up, but and then there's brut. And I would say most of the champagnes that you typically will find, at least in the States, or people might gravitate towards, are brut.
Yeah.
It's like around 12 grams of sugar per liter, something like that. And then you have extra dry, and then it's I believe it's sec. No, is that right?
I think so. Yeah.
Sec, and then demi-sec, which means half dry in French, is actually pretty sweet. It's
yeah.
really
Here they on the label it'll say semi-sec as opposed to demi-sec.
Yeah. And then DOUX in French means sweet. That's definitely a dessert wine. So anyway, but yeah, the distinctions can be really confusing. So flavors you might taste in a typical cava might be like quince fruit, lime, yellow apple, maybe even some like tea, like chamomile or almond. And then one more comment on the cava. There's different distinctions of the cava based on how long it's been on these lees, right? The yeast. So typical cava is at least 9 months minimum on the lees. Mine, it said on the bottle that it was in the bottle on the lees for 12 months. And then there's Cava Reserva, which is 15 months minimum on the lees. And then Cava Gran Reserva is 30 months minimum on the lees. And mine is actually a 2013, and it was not expensive. And that's the one thing that to keep in mind is, like, if you like bubbly wine, but you don't want to spend, the money that the champagne, costs, Cava is a great alternative, quality sparkling wine for not the same amount of money.
Yes.
Okay. So let's move on to the white. So did anyone find any verde? Okay, Amanda, say it for me.
Verdejo, verdejo.
Verdejo? Okay. Did anyone find any if you brought some wine? I know Brian.
Oh, Brian's in the chat. What is
Yeah,
Brian?
Brian, what he says, I'm so knowledgeable. I'm just reading. I'm just reading off.
But you researched it, yeah? You
I
researched
took a little
it.
time. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to sound like I knew what I was talking about. So, I suggested either Rueda region, which was, if you recall, it's north of Madrid, or around Madrid. And mine actually is from the area around the Castilla, Tierra de Castilla. So mine's right just south of Madrid. What did you find one at all, Amanda?
Brian said he found a white at his wine shop, but I don't know which one it was, if you want to put that in the chat.
Oh yeah, I see that, Brian.
I have a Rueda Verdejo, so I have the Rueda one. And it is, I'm just got new glasses, so I'm going to tell you they have the little reading thing in it. So now I'm like,
I get it.
like, do I have enough light? But yeah, so mine is, I think it's all Verdejo. It's not a blend. So it's all,
Okay.
yeah.
And what does it say? Hang on, I was just looking at that. Does it say just Rueda, or does it say?
No, yeah, it's just Rueda. Yeah. Denomination of origin, denominación de origen. Yeah.
Okay, because if it says Rueda Verdejo, then it's got to be minimum 85% Verdejo in it.
Right.
But if it just says Rueda, that region, then they only required to put 50%.
Right. And so this one, it doesn't specify, but I know that it doesn't specify other varieties. So that means that it has to have at least 85.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And so if it is just from the region of Rueda and it doesn't say Rueda Verdejo, the rest of the blend will probably be Sauvignon Blanc and maybe it's another grape. I missed. I didn't write it right. It starts with a V. Viura, maybe something like that.
Viura.
Yes.
Viura.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. And so I'm just curious. I haven't tasted mine yet.
Oh wait, what did Brian say in the chat here? Oh, the bottle is downstairs.
Yeah, don't worry about it, Brian. It's all good. Good later. So this tends to be, if you like Sauvignon Blanc, this might be a wine that you would appreciate. It's got more of that crispness and citrusy, sometimes herbaceous, right? And it grows, like I said, almost exclusively in that Rueda region. I think mine is an anomaly because it's down by around the area around Madrid. High acidity, sometimes a little bit of bitterness, and it's a great food wine. And something you might want to eat alongside this, along with this, would be like fish tacos, or maybe some sort of a chicken with lime or something like that. And other flavors you might be tasting in the wine might be lime, grapefruit, peach, and maybe like even kind of spicy like fennel. So I'm just curious. I definitely smell kind of herbal in mine.
What?
No white.
Oh,
So something interesting about the Rueda region is that it became a really fertile area because in the 11th century, this is nerdy stuff, but in the 11th century there was, when the Islam and Muslim Christians and Muslim battles and all this kind of stuff, it was basically devastated and burnt to the ground. It was a region that hadn't been used very much for harvesting plants or anything like that. And so the fact that it had been sitting for a long time and then it had been burned and devastated, it became a really good region to be growing wines in that area.
Interesting.
And then another interesting
plain. Isn't it like a high plain up there?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So Rueda also in this region, they often go and do a night harvest because it's so hot. And so the difference between picking grapes when it's really cool out, because it's, I mean, you think about like deserty temperatures where there's a big contrast, right?
Yeah.
So maybe, you know, if you pick it while it's hot, the sugars and the way, the personality of the grape is very different as to when you go in and pick it at night. So there are stories about, you know, you go in with your headlamp and you pick the grapes at night and then you put it into the nitrogen, that isn't it nitrogen, that they, you know, keep it cold and then they bring it back and press it right away. So it maintains that character of the cool temperature.
Cool.
Anyway, those are funny stories.
Well, and that's, you know, the grapes really do well with that, you know, the big temperature swings like that. I mean, you want the heat, but you don't want it consistent because that just will be too much, right? It'll create too much sugar. It's not good for the grapes. So that coolness that area has in the evening is wonderful, and that's what you want if you're a winemaker, is that big diurnal swing or whatever they call that. And the soil in Rueda too is very sandy, and it gives a lot of like minerality to the taste of the wine, and some saline and citrus too that you might find because of the okay, the wine, Brian says, Telma Rodriguez, a white wine, okay, from Rueda. So it's probably, Brian, at least 50% of the Verdeo. It could be a blend, and they might not even have, they probably don't even have to say it. Do you know what I mean? What else is in there? Unless you know the winemaker, then maybe then you would know for sure it's 100% Verdeo, but awesome. Cool. I like that. I turned Brian on to that liquor store. He's in Minnesota too.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. I think, are they in other places too? I feel like I know them for some reason. It could
be. It could be. I have no clue. I know there's quite a few in the Twin Cities. I'm not sure. Okay, let's move on to red. Okay. So I thought we would go to the Monastral. And by the way, since I've lost my job as a tour guide, I've become a wine rep. And so the wines that I have with me today are all wines that I sell. But so this one, I love this one. I love the label too. You know, the winemaker wrote on the label. That is
really cool.
You know what I mean? On the bottle. I think that's super cool. And I love, it's a woman winemaker. She's like 28 years old. And it's all old vine, Monastral. And so remember, this is the area that is down by Valencia. Jumilla, yeah? Ooh, I should speak Spanish.
I know.
Yeah. And so it is a very warm, dry climate in that area. And so it makes wines with bold fruit flavors. Remember, I talked about fruit forward. Typically, wines that are fruit forward come from a warm climate area. So this would be indicative of that. And so lots of bold fruits, and maybe even like black olive, possibly even tar. That sounds horrible. Like, why would you want to drink tar? But sometimes there's some interesting smells or even flavors in wines. And that part of it, the science part of it, I'm still learning. I find that fascinating. The things that you can pick up out of the smells and the flavors of wine are all the same chemical compounds that are of, you know, the same of the fruits or vegetables and whatever else you're smelling, you know what I mean? The same compounds. I think that's so amazing. So with the Monastral, so this is a Spanish grape of origin. In the French called Mourvedre, and it's a grape that you find in the south of France in the Côte du Rhône. And so it's one of the GSM grapes, the Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre grapes that you find in a Côte du Rhône blend. Some of the flavors you might have here, blackberry, raisin, mocha, tobacco smoke, maybe even black pepper, maybe a little spicy. And foods you might want to eat with alongside this would be like smoked meats, like barbecue, something like that. This one, I don't, did you have a Monastral at all, Amanda?
I do. Although I'm afraid to open it because I'll open it anyway. I gotta open it. I might as well. I bought them all for this, so.
Go crazy, Amanda.
I know we're going crazy. It takes us, how long does it take us to finish a bottle in this house? And now we're gonna have like 3 open.
Am I being a pusher, Amanda? Drink.
Oh
drink.
yeah. Oh yeah. Drink it, drink it. There was only one of these in our market. So I don't know, really. And I'm gonna tell you the truth. I'm being a little prejudiced, and this is something that I tell people not to do, but I'm being prejudiced because it was really cheap. So I'm thinking, is this gonna be a Tinto de Verano, like our summer wine? But we will see, we will see. And of course, in Spain, we always eat with our drinks. Yeah, we always
Yeah.
eat drinks.
I love that.
Um,
I think-
there's always cheese or bread or some sort of something with your drink.
I love
So this
that.
is
yeah.
it's
Oh,
real clear. It's not
Yeah.
real. But this is a fun extra for you. You have all your different types of wine glasses, right? For different types of wine. Well, this in Spain is called a chato de vino. And it's typically the less expensive wine, although it could be just the bar wine. You go up to a bar and you order a wine, you get a chato de vino. So it could be, you're not specific. It's not a specific classy wine bar where you're getting, the years or the grapes or whatever. You might just order a region like Ribera or Ribera de Duero or Rioja or Verdejo. You probably wouldn't get in this, but like a red wine, you would typically get in this. And so anyway, that's fun. It's fun.
So
but I think
it's more like table wine, kind of like local wine,
yes.
and not
Yes.
necessarily a small size. Or is it
Exactly.
also?
Well, and yeah, like this is about what you pour. That's
Okay.
another thing that I want to talk just real quick about, if you guys
Of
have
course.
time. So when you pour wine in Spain, you don't typically pour. I know when I go to the States and I go to a restaurant, the glass is like $10 a glass, and you're going, you better fill it up, right? It's $10 a glass. But here in Spain, the wine is not that expensive. It's cheaper than Coca-Cola. So you will get your glass of wine, and you're not going to fill it up. You're going to fill it up to maybe like, this may be a little bit more than this, but you're not going to fill it up super high. And so Spanish people, if you fill it all the way to the top, they're going to be like, oh, I can't taste that wine. That's so full. But because it's cheaper and you get, 2 or 3 glasses, and you'll be eating the whole time that you're having these glasses of wine. Anyway, little extra tidbits about the chateau and the filling.
I love that. That's so fun. That's like in France.
Oh, that's not bad.
Is it okay?
Yeah, no, it's not bad. I was expecting less.
Just curious, what do you taste in it? Do you pick up it, like, what does it taste like?
It's kind of peppery.
Okay.
It feels kind of peppery to me.
Yeah. Mine does too.
Definitely a little peppery. It's always, plus the food always brings out different things in your, when you're suggesting all these different foods to eat with our wines.
Yeah. But this one's nice. I mean, mine it's super flavorful, but it's not super grippy tannin. You know how like that tannin is something you would feel if you sucked on a tea bag, right? And your whole mouth just like puckers in.
Enamel off the
tannin. And you tend to feel that more, kind of on the well, you could feel it all over depending how much tannin you feel you have in that wine. But the acidity, red wines can have both tannin and acidity, and acidity is what making your mouth water. So like mine is doing both. But it's very gentle acidity or tannin, sorry. It's not very grippy, and it's acidic, but it's got good flavor and could go with lighter tasting foods and a little bit more bold. It wouldn't, you know what I mean? It wouldn't smother something light flavored. And that's one thing I find when I'm traveling with people is like, they're always like, well, what do I, is it against the law to drink red with fish, for example, and the French are really kind of, particular about what you drink with what. Oh yeah, this is the Monastrell, Brian. And it's more about, you don't want the wine to mask the food, right? Like I've been using that word marry. I think I've said it, what would this marry well with, right? You don't want it to totally mask the food so that you don't even taste it. And you also want it to blend well with the food. So this mine could go with fish if it was fish that had, you know, like salmon or something like that, that had a little bit more flavor to it. Like walleye is a big local fish here, lovely white fish that I wouldn't have walleye with that. That might cover it up. You wouldn't be able to taste the walleye.
Or vice versa, food that's so powerful that it just takes over and the wine just doesn't taste like anything anymore.
Yeah. I find it just fascinating, the whole blending of wine and food and so on. And I was going to say too, Amanda, I loved your, when you were sitting in your last live, when you were having a little drink and they gave you that little chickpea salad. And I was inspired. I made the same salad, by the way.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I was like, oh, it sounds so good. But I love getting little snacky things with my drink, because I just think that's such a thing about Europe, that when I was a student, you know, coming from going to college in the States, and it was all about anytime you sat down, you know, when you drank with your friends, it was drink to get drunk. Whereas when I was in France, I was like, oh, we're having fun, and alcohol is just part of the fun. I mean, it's like a side dish. Do you know what I mean? And that was really refreshing for me too, just to see that the attitude towards alcohol was different.
And it's like a
More
long,
healthy.
you know, like people, you know, I mean, they'll drink from 4 until 11 o'clock at night, but they'll have, you know, the little chatos or a smaller glass of wine, and they'll be eating cheese and tapas at the same time. And
yeah,
you know.
yeah, and that's so good. Okay. All right, so the last one, guys, unless you had anything else to say about the Monastral.
No, I do not. I'm just surprised at my 285 bottle of wine. I was kind of like dreading it, but it's actually quite nice.
Oh, so
and I'm like, this is what I tell people. Don't be afraid to get the cheaper one.
Right? It does. Yeah. Especially in Europe, where the wine is so plentiful. I mean, you can get great wine for 5-6 euros sometimes,
Oh,
you know?
sure. You know, I don't know if you know Nigel, Chris. He's one
Yeah,
of our
Rick's,
Rick Steves guides. And now he's basically just doing wine, and he's a teacher of wine and all this. And for his birthday, a person who wine is his world now for the past 2 or 3 years, his birthday bottle of wine was 25 euros. He's like, this is the best wine that I want. And 25 euros here is like a splurge wine. You can get, you know, $50, $80 or 80 euro bottles of wine, but like a person who loves wine, who wine is his world, his top wine was 25 euros. So it's like that.
You remember?
I don't remember.
Okay.
But that was a couple of years ago, and it was just like, oh my God, that's such an example of, you don't have to spend 100 on a bottle of wine or 80 to have it be the top, you know, flavor. And
absolutely. I mean, so like yesterday I brought around, as my job as a wine rep, I was going around to a couple of my clients and having them taste champagne, grower champagne, it's often called farmer fizz, which means it's the grower, the farmer, it's their product. They hold it all the way through production. It is their product. So a lot of champagne, the big houses, they buy grapes from other producers and then they make the product, right? So farmer fizz or grower champagne means the farmer made it all. And they can be really amazing for great price compared to like Dom Perignon or whatever. And I brought along this cava that I'm tasting today, because I just thought, you know, I got it for our tasting, and I thought, oh, just for the heck of it, I'll have them taste it. And this one guy who's very discerning, he loved all of it, but he almost bought the cava because he was like blown away by how good it was, right? And it's, I don't even remember the price for that one, but super reasonable. Like on the shelf, it would be maybe $20. Yeah. Anyway, okay, I'm getting distracted. Okay, let's go to the last one. So now we're in the Rioja, and this is another wine that I sell, Sancho Baron. So I love this Sancho, right?
I know, good work. Wait, I think it's the same. Oh no, Bordelon. Oh, it's not the same. It's not the same. Never mind.
Baron.
But that's Sancho Baron. I love it.
Well, I just thought about Sancho and.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. What a coincidence.
Right? So Rioja And Tempranillo is also one of these Spanish grapes, and it's the top variety that's in Rioja, and Rioja Tempranillo can be classified based on how long it's aging in oak, and if it's it will tell you the more spendy Tempranillo would be aging even up to 20 years in oak, which is kind of crazy, but it's possible to find that. But so you have, really kind of a differentiation between the different Tempranillo. You can find very fresh, young styles that food-wise you might, have more with pasta, tomato-based dishes. And then the bolder, longer aged styles, you would have more with your meats, your lamb, your steak, your hamburgers, that kind of thing. And the flavors you might find would be like cherry, dried figs, cedar, because of the wood, from the oak, tobacco, maybe even a little herbal, like dill, for example. So if you like some of the Italian grapes, like Sangiovese, Montepulciano, Olianico, Nebbiolo, those kinds of grapes, then you would really like the Tempranillo. And then there's also different, valleys. This is this area that I talked about with the river running through it. And it's broken up into different valleys. So there's the Rioja Alavesa,
Alavesa.
and Rioja Alta.
Mm-hmm.
And then just to the east of a town called Logroño.
Logroño. It has an N in it.
Oh, thank you. Is called Rioja Baja.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a Tempranillo from that Baja area, it's going to be a more rich, meaty, bold, muscular, maybe you want to say, grape or wine, because the soil has more iron in it. It's a clay soil that has more iron, compared to the western part of that area where it's more of a limestone clay mix. So it's just so interesting, isn't it? I mean, all that goes into producing that agricultural product and how that changes the flavor, of course, and the temperature and everything else. Yeah. So I don't know. What do you have one that you're tasting?
I do. I'm trying this Bordon. It's in crianza. Now, I don't know if you're going to talk about there are, and I'm not going to go into the details, but basically it's joven, crianza. I don't know if you're going to talk about that.
No, go ahead, please.
Okay. The joven, crianza, reserva, gran reserva. So this can be across the board, a young joven, crianza, like teenager, reserva, and like getting there, and then gran reserva. And so that's the different aging processes in the barrel and the length of all of those. So the younger wines and the mid wines. So a crianza is the kind of like a little bit older teenager, 20 something wine, and relating to people wise. And those are really good go-to wines. You can go and see crianza and it's not going to break the bank. But it has a lot of the flavors of the oak in it.
This is a C, so it looks like crianza, we might say in English.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Let me see if I can get this up to. I don't know if you can even read that on there. Woo! Me with my new glasses, I'm like, I don't know.
No, I don't see that.
Crianza.
Okay.
So those are things you can look for. And Gran Reserva, reserve, think of great reserve, and that's like the most time that it's been aged. Maybe one of your where you're saying before about the 20 something year. But a crianza can really get you through a nice dinner. It really can. I mean, that goes more than just Rioja, more than just Tempranillo. You can look at other types of wines and find those aging names.
Yeah, and it's funny because mine doesn't say it at all. It doesn't
really?
say any of those. No, and I'm not sure.
That it's funny because I think there are some, I mean, the labeling is different in America than it is here. It's funny what's important. Yours says crianza, Brian. Nice.
That's awesome. That's great. But mine, I mean, doesn't mean that mine is bad necessarily, but it is interesting, isn't it?
It is.
But yeah, so I have the like designation here. So the Joven, like you said, spends little or no time in oak.
Mm-hmm.
Crianza is 24 months in aging with at least 6 months in a barrel. And in Rioja, it's a year.
The
in
Reserva,
in the
Reserva.
barrel. Yeah. No, this is Crianza.
Oh, Crianza, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just the different regions have a little different, you know.
Oh, Rioja, you're talking, okay.
timing.
Yeah,
And then Reserva, the red, 36 months aging and at least 12 months in barrel.
Mhm.
Gran Reserva, 60 months aging with at least 18 months in barrel.
I have sort of a not so smart question, I guess. What about aging in the bottle? Does that hurt the wine or help the wine?
Well, it all depends on the winemaker. I mean, most winemakers tend to age in either oak barrels, stainless steel, cement or concrete, I should say, or even some are even playing around with like terracotta, even like a lot of people are playing with. So most winemakers tend to want to age in a bigger vat because they can control the whole quantity and the flavor of the whole product. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the reason I asked was I went to the wine rack here and I found a couple of Spanish wines.
Oh, that's
Oh,
nice.
look at you.
This one is, I guess it's 2014.
Ooh.
We probably had it here for about 5 years in the bottle.
Well, of course, that's aging, right?
But is it making it better or worse, though?
Well, it depends on the wine. I would say drink that baby. That sounds like a good answer.
Well, we might serve it when Kristen comes next week.
Yeah. Oh, she's going
Oh,
next week. Are you serious? That's so exciting. Yeah.
And then we have another one here that says 2010. So that's been even.
Oh, she's going to want to
Longer.
crack those open.
Oh, yeah.
It's time to drink them.
Well, and it really depends on the wine, and like what helps wine age well is acidity. So that acidity again is like it's along the sides of your mouth when makes you want to like you can feel the saliva building or whatever. That's the acidity that you feel. And that if a wine has a good amount of acidity, it can age for a long time. So for example, in France, the Rieslings and Gewürztraminer and the sweeter wines, they have a lot of acidity in them and they can age 10 to even 20 years, some of them, the white wines, right? Red wines tend to have a good amount of acidity and they can often age, but it just depends on the wine. If it's a softer wine with not a whole lot of acidity, it might not be good to age it as long. It might be maybe up to 5 years or so, but those I'm sure are fine.
We'll crack them open when Kristen
Oh,
comes.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you gotta.
I'm sure
You
she'll be
gotta.
curious about trying them. Awesome. What else, guys? I've come to the end of my notes.
Ooh, I got something there. Let's see. We're getting
Okay.
mixed in with the photo and Craig's photo there. What you got
Yeah.
there?
Let me see here. Maybe if I kill this background. we can see
Just
what-
put it in front of your face.
Here's the
Recess.
bottle.
Get rid of that. Put that up there. Is that reversed for you?
We
Oh, I
can't see
can't see
anything,
ya.
Craig. We don't
Just-
see any picture.
No. Oh, that's because my bad.
There.
There we go. Ooh, good try, man.
Oh,
Is that reversed for you?
It
It's
is reversed,
reversed.
but that's okay. Rioja.
Rioja.
And there's this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Very nice.
Yeah, so it says it's from somewhere around vineyards around LaGuardia.
Are you familiar with that area, Amanda?
I'm not.
La Guardia. I don't know it.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's Rioja. It's gonna be good.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty good. It's robust and big bodied, little sort of cherryish hint, I would say.
Let me see the label again. See that label to me? Yeah, see that label to me, and I'm gonna be like that label looks real classic to me. So it seems like a classy wine, like an older
Yeah.
style label versus, gosh, I don't have any. I'm trying to think of like the old world, new world ideas of like the earth and the terroir versus the, you know, the actual grape and stuff. It's a stereotype that you can sometimes
Yeah.
go from like that classic looking thing to like, there's one with just a picture of a man and then, you know, those different types of things that you can find. So it looks pretty classy to me.
I
Yeah,
think
so this was a 2018. Would it have been better to let it age a bit longer?
I think I am on Chris's page. Drink that baby.
well, and you know, I mean, the thing that I find so fascinating about wine, I mean, I'm sure it tastes good, right, Craig?
Yeah,
Is it
no, I'm
making you
happy with it.
happy? Well,
Yeah.
good. Then that's all that matters. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Oh, Chris,
But-
I totally agree with you because sometimes you go to some of the wine things and you're going, oh, was I supposed to taste leather? I don't even know what leather tastes.
When's the last time I tasted my belt?
Exactly. And you're
Whip
going,
it off, Craig, and start licking your belt.
exactly. And you're going, well, that's the main thing. Do you like it? Is, you know, Chris, that's right on. Do you like it? Do you love it? Is it, you know, then it was the time to open it. If you're enjoying it, then it was the time to open it.
Well, and I like to say too, you know, two things.
Here I am back in the train station.
Oh, look at that. You're in a toja. I love
Yeah.
that you have that prepared.
Been
That's
there.
amazing.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Wow. That's a train station?
In
Yeah,
Madrid.
they have a botanical garden actually. They for the 500-year anniversary in 1992 of Columbus, they renovated the whole station and put in 500. I don't know if they're 500 now, but it's a tropical botanical garden, and they put 500 different types of plants in there. And
Oh
it's just
my.
basically the old atrium filled with these beautiful plants, and they you know, shoot mist in there, and it's like a waiting room, because then they did the whole other modern train station in a whole other section to be able to do the modern tracks and the different areas for different types of trains.
Yeah, it's a big surprise when you get off the train from Barcelona.
A
And
beautiful
This
surprise.
is where you land.
Wow, that's gorgeous. I just want to say two things that, like what you're talking about, Craig, is like, when is it good to drink it? Well, if it tastes good, you did a good job.
There you go.
If it
There you
doesn't
go.
taste
Right.
good, then
Right. It's
But-
open, so don't let it age anymore.
Exactly. Just finish it. Finish it.
and you know, I would say if it's something you're concerned about when you buy your wine, you should ask.
Yeah.
You know, hey, how long can I age this? You know, when should I, you know, put an alarm on my phone, like drink that wine if you haven't drank
Don't
it yet.
forget about it.
Because again, it's just going to depend on the kind of wine and all that.
Sure.
But and also how well you store it, right? I mean, you don't want it sitting on your fridge in the heat. You want it down in your cellar or in an area that's
In the
cool.
window.
Yeah, in the sunlight.
Playing.
Oh. And then the other thing, you know, like Amanda was saying, like all these flavors, like I am just, you know, learning about this whole world of wine. I find it fascinating, but I often find some of the terminology and the things that people say, the real wine geeks, kind of silly. Like there's a client of mine that he likes to use the word flabby, you know, and that's a real wine term. He's like, oh yeah, that wine is flabby. And I'm like, are you talking about my arms? Like, you know, like, are you talking about me?
What are we talking about here? Your shopping muscles, or
Are you trying to say something about me? Anyway, but flabby is a real wine term, and it relates to the acidity in a wine that has gone kind of flat, or it's just not as crisp and lively. Do you know what I mean? It's the opposite of lively and fresh. So what you smell and taste in a wine is so personal, but it kind of goes, I hate to bring it up, but COVID kind of goes along with COVID in the sense a lot of people who got COVID lost their taste of their sense of taste and smell. And there is a way to build that back up. And that's something that if you're really interested in wine and learning about wine, you can improve, and no matter what age, your sensory ability to smell and taste things. And it just takes practice. Like I find myself smelling a lot of stuff. Like this wine for normal people lady, she was like, go and dig underneath a shrub in your yard and kind of shake it around and smell
I
it,
love
you know,
it.
because there's like that smell, like all these smells. Like I've been trying to be more conscious of smelling things just to like bring that memory back into my being of like, oh yeah, what is, a dusty shelf smell like? I could just smell my shelf right now. Like, what is that? Just so you can have a reference point. So
Yeah, I think
never feel intimidated by people who spout off all these weird words because, whatever. It's more like, what do you sense and do you like it? Bottom line, do you like it? If you don't like it, don't even worry about the crazy words they're throwing out at you.
or the Parker number on it. If it's like a 90
Yes.
whatever, and you go, and I really don't like this, well then don't buy it again.
Well, and there are more wines that are not rated than are. You know what I mean? It's tempting to gravitate towards the wines that have a sticker of how many points they have on it because you think, oh, well, it's got a big number, it must be great. Well, it might be, but it might not be your style, might not be your preference.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
it's more understanding. Do you like fruit forward wines or do you like more herbaceous wines? What is it that you like in a wine? And kind of go armed with that kind of vocab. So when you walk into a wine shop, you say, I really like,
Mhm.
and maybe you really liked the Tempranillo and you say, I really like Tempranillo, but I'm open to wines that are similar to Tempranillo. You know what I'm saying? It'll open up your eyes to try different things for sure.
I like it. I like the idea of memories. I do an olive oil tasting with some folks down in the South, and he was just a very poetic olive, because olives are same as wine. I mean, the varieties and the
Yeah.
blends, and they go with this fish or they go with that meat, and they, all those kinds of things. But he really talks about that. Your taste is and smells are all yours. It's your memory bank of smells. And how many times have you walked into a house that's like my grandma's house or my mom's house, and it's like this familiar smell and or underneath your shrub or your dusty shelves or your leather belt or whatever, but it's all your own, and so you can't have anyone dictate what your memories of smell are when you're
Yeah.
talking wines or olive oil.
Yeah. There's even in Riesling, a flavor of petroleum.
Oh,
Gasoline. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It sounds horrible, but it's not offensive actually, but once you think about it and if it's in there and you taste it, it's like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy, but it's funny stuff out there. But again, it just takes practice and again, it's your own, I call it your own personal post-it note, like, oh, I like this wine tastes like this, or smells like this. And that's a way for you to recognize it and go, I want to buy it again, or
mhm.
never again.
Get it. Yeah.
Forget
Yeah.
it. So, well, guys, that's all I got. If there's any other questions or things you want to
Hey,
share.
Brian, I don't have any plans for any for the moment, any other pilgrimage in Spain for the moment. I think, Chris, are you taking a break in the summer? Is this like
Yeah,
after
I mean,
Madrid?
after this, there's a Prague for a week and with the Yanas, Yana and Yana. And then Patrick is doing the south of France. And then there's going to be a bit of a hiatus. I've been seeing too, like less people signing up because I think summer, everyone's outside and they're doing stuff and they're busy and they're going on vacation and whatever. But we plan on, the Yanas are actually planning in the fall, another virtual, and it's going to be the old Czechoslovakia.
Oh,
So it'll
wow.
be the Czech Republic and Slovakia together. And it's actually a tour that they've been wanting Rick to run for a long time, and he's not interested at this point. So
No.
so we're gonna do a virtual version, and we're gonna do an in real life version next year. A real
Oh,
tour.
gorgeous. Gorgeous.
With
Gorgeous.
them. Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Yeah. So no, I think summer is kind of a time to take a break. I think everyone's doing their own thing, but I would love to continue doing them, in the off season and in the times when people aren't traveling or
It's
'cause
rainy and cold.
yeah, and also I really personally I see the virtual experiences maybe not in the same fashion that we're doing them now. It might look a little different, but I think something similar because what a great way to prep for a trip too.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Or people who aren't able to go for whatever reason. I think there's always going to be a interest in it, hopefully. Because we got such great people like you and all the other guides in country that are there on the spot. This has been for me just a dream to you know, as you know, like I would love to go on all of my guide friends tours. I would love to go be able to do that, but I don't have time to do that. You know, I'm stuck in France. Woe is me.
Oh,
So
boo-hoo.
horrible.
So sad.
You know, I mean, plus as a mom, I mean, you just have limited time, right? So as much as I'd love to go off and jump on someone else's tour, I just don't have time at this point. So this has been really great for me to learn and see places that I've always wanted to go. And Spain, I haven't been to for so long.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful. I will be doing a sort of virtual experience with cooking. So if you're interested in learning about how to make some tapas, and my husband and I are doing some projects with that, if you're interested in checking it out. I think it's on Chocolate Suitcase website as well, and gather2travel.com. So if you want to check out that, it's sort of a culinary / video tour at the same time.
When will that be happening, Amanda?
July 11th, 15th, 23rd, and 31st, I think. We're
And we'll
trying
share
different
that.
days a week. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to share that. Amanda and I were just talking about sharing all that because we want to obviously let you guys know about it, and, you know, do it in a way that's not like we're trying to market the hell out of you.
Exactly. Exactly. But as long as you bet.
Very good.
Kind marketers.
Yes. Definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
Say,
Well,
Chris,
Thanks,
Um,
everybody. I hope this was good or helpful in some way.
Definitely.
yeah,
Someone had
very
a
interesting.
question there?
Well, yes, we missed part of last week's session. And do you have these recorded?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, it's all on that the My Coach app, and I can send you a little link to that if that helps. I'm not sure if you've been on it at all, but like every day there's some information on there.
Yeah, I've seen the everyday things, but frankly, haven't looked at them.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Well, then that sounds like a personal issue then.
Yeah.
But yes, those are on there. Absolutely. And if you want, I'm happy to email you the link too, if that's helpful. I'm happy
That
to-
would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Excellent.
I'm just teasing you.
I'm not.
With love, with love.
With love, with lots of love. Okay. Well, thanks everybody, and have a
good
great
evening.
rest of the
Or
day.
day, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
too.
have a good evening with all your wine, Amanda.
Oh, I know. It's like sitting up, but the white wine, it's got to go back in the fridge now. I'm just thinking Luca ended up, he's taking advantage of playing some video games, and I'm,
Right.
I got to go cut that off and get some dinner going.
All right.
Nice
Thanks
to see
everybody. So good to
everyone.
spend time
Thank
with
you.
you.
Thank you.
All right.
Have a good
Good luck.
day. Bye. See you tomorrow.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.